Hello and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Factory. I'm thrilled to have my Singularity Scribes. We shared tables at the Pasadena Comic-Con this weekend. And for your listening and viewing pleasure, on the factory floor, we have Ingrid Moon. Hey, Ingrid. We've got Greg Sorber. And we've got Blake and Sherry Shimshock. Welcome aboard, everybody. How'd you feel? How'd you feel about the Pasadena Comic-Con? What's your takeaway?
Who are you asking?
I know you gotta call a name, man.
Or whoever speaks first has the mic.
I'll go first. Felt like it was a little slower than I would have liked. I think everybody maybe thinks that. The people that were there were good, but I do think maybe it was a little too close still to Christmas, and maybe people were still feeling the impact of Christmas. So I didn't see people buying as much as I normally would at one of these type of shows or cons. So that's my first initial impression.
Yeah, for context, Greg and Ingrid and I were at LA Comic-Con not too long ago, and overall volume was, I think, an order of magnitude more intense. So I just know in terms of book sales, engagement, it was also a 3-day affair rather than a single day in Pasadena. But that kind of comparison is probably valid. Blake and Sherry, have you done these book fairs before?
Well, actually, it was our third gig.
A couple of times.
Yeah.
So
And I felt the same way.
You guys are veterans.
Ingrid pulled us in
Yeah.
for the first time.
I agree with Greg. I think it was slow for at least 90 minutes. And I was questioning, and then suddenly within 20 minutes, we sold 2 books. Then it was sort of a little trickle from there for the rest of the day.
What about you, Ingrid? The veteran, the maven.
It was pretty slow. I mean, I've seen slower, but my understanding is that a lot of people didn't seem to know there was a whole ballroom section. So the big room was crowded, and then not a lot of people trickled over to our side. But the hallways, which last year the hallways were like dead, the hallways apparently got a lot of traffic. So it's kind of like, I think people were just confused about where they could go or what they could see, I guess.
Scott, the organizer, sent a follow-up email that I saw today specifying that they're working on signage for Artists Alley. I don't know if you guys saw that email. So there must have been other complaints. We weren't the only ones who were staring into the void for a big chunk of the con. And I guess we were the victims of some logistics and layout and arguably signage.
Although our booth had plenty of signage, and it was right at the entrance, so couldn't miss.
Yeah,
you did. You had your fabulous banner, and we had the whole thing decked out. We had liners, we had bookmarks, we had QR codes, we had signs. Which goes into the next part of best practices. We've got folks listening who themselves are indie writers. We've got science fiction fans. And as far as selling books live goes, which is, for me, an interesting experience. I'm relatively new to the game. Writers tend to be at their keyboards. It's a very solitary, traditionally introverted kind of venture, unless you're Blake and Sherry, in which case you guys actually collaborate on your books, which to me is also fascinating. But to me, it's a treat to get out. So even though the Pasadena Comic-Con might have been a little bit underwhelming in terms of overall volume and sales and engagement, it was an opportunity to get out there and hang with you awesome folks, collaborators, partners in indie science fiction crime, and also mingle and mangle on the floor with artists, with swag, hurlers, with all sorts of types and personalities. So from a networking point of view, those opportunities were there. to mingle and mangle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the one thing that you can do at slower shows is get around and talk to other artists. And that was a lot of fun. I got to talk to a few, bought a few extra graphic novels and got a couple of them interested in my books. So hopefully that sees some good swap sales at some point. Yeah, so that was fun. The people that did come up and talk were very well engaged, like normal, and that's always fun. So for me, since I'm not requiring, not depending on this as a sole income source, if I have a slow day, it's not the end of the world for me. I'm out there writing my books and selling my books, so that, to me, that's a good day. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah, it
think
wasn't a
any networking opportunity in the real world is to be cherished, even if a little bit sluggish. I even got a chance to go with my kid to the Van Halen childhood home, which is only about 7 minutes from the Pasadena Convention Center. And I actually ran into another podcaster who does VH stories, and we fist pumped over Eddie and Alex
Okay.
and follow up with another podcast. So networking there. I trolled my pod to other writers and graphic artists. So it was fun. It was a good opportunity. And kudos to Ingrid for herding the cats. And we're going to do something of a repeat for the LA Festival of Books, which is coming up the weekend of April 18th and 19th, if I have the dates right.
something like that. Whatever that weekend is.
Whatever that weekend
17, 18,
is.
18, 19, one of those.
Yeah.
So tell listeners and viewers, folks, let's go round robin as to what you guys have written, where you guys are at, and what you hope to do in 2026 and beyond. Being an indie writer, let alone a science fiction indie writer, is something of a niche hobby. To Greg's point, it's rare to make it a profession. I think even Nebula award-winning authors have day jobs. So let's go around. Who wants to lead the charge? Or should I just pick a name like a nursery school teacher?
It's like when I'm teaching high school and all the kids are just, we're not going to share.
Right.
Don't call on me.
I see Ingrid and Blake.
Are we that old school?
All right, Greg, you volunteered. Go for it, buddy.
Sounds good. So, so my series is called Mechhaven. It's 5 books and 2 novellas. It is a complete series. I finished or released the last book in September. And so I'm kind of still basking a little bit in the afterglow of getting that done and out and having a complete series. That's always nice to be able to tell people when I'm at a show, this is a complete series. You don't have to wait for another book. It's good to go. And so my goal in 2026 or the end of 2025 and into 2026 is I'm starting a new series, a fantasy series that I'm about maybe a little over halfway done with the first book. So goal is I would really like to get it out by one of the final shows of this year, which for me is Comic-Con Revolution Ontario, but that's in May. And right now I don't see that happening. So it'll probably be more maybe of a fall release, probably September again. But we'll see.
Terrific. You gave me a little teaser as to the theme and MO of the fantasy book. Would you mind sharing at least the core idea, or is that giving out too much IP?
No, of course. I don't have my my little pitch paper here that I've been working on, so I'll just go off the cuff. It's 3 main characters. It's a fantasy. One's a young man. He's cursed. He's been cursed. His family for generations, 1,000 years, have been cursed, and he gets magically transported to somewhere in this vast world once a month. And so it makes it impossible for him to gain any power, gain any traction. And you'll come to find out later through the story that his family was once upon a time one of the magical rulers of the world. And the one thing, though, is it's very geographically located. Once you're near your power source, you're nearly invincible. But the further away you get from it, the weaker you become. And so because he can never get back to that source of power, his family there's no way they can maintain power, but he still keeps getting drawn back into the events of the world, so to speak. And so um, he makes a friend, and that friend has been deposed. He was a son of a duke. He's been deposed, and so he wants to go up against one of these other magic, I call them ether lords, and they basically he gets involved with that. So there's one thing, and then he has a love interest in the story. She's an apprentice ether lord and will someday become an ether lord, and so that's kind of a little bit of tension and fun, but she's kind of the only person in the world that is looking out for him, and so they've kind of come up with a scheme to help him out whenever he jumps to these random places. So that's it in a nutshell. I could go into more detail, but that's probably good for now.
I like the random zapping. I got my ADHD, and that's kind of how I feel like all day. I'm having coffee in the kitchen, and the next thing I know, I'm like, on a podcast. So I can relate to your...
As a writer, it's really fun because I can set up a storyline, get it going, and then yank him out and then plop him down somewhere else. And so it's a bit jarring, but then it also allows me to play with a lot of different fantasy tropes in the same book without having to start fresh, So I think it's going to be fun.
Great mechanism. It's kind of like the movie Memento, only instead of going backwards, it's going forwards.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, Mike, over to you. Blake and Sherry.
All right.
Derek Fade. Derek Fade isn't fading out. Derek Fade is gonna fade up and into a third book. Is that right?
Oh yes, it is. It's actually finished. We're just fine tuning it, and you know how it is. You write something, you go, well, let's try this, and you flesh it out, and you shrink scenes and expand on stuff, and we're hoping, I think by the summertime it'll be out. So I have to get with the artist and, start working on the book cover. And I've already started actually book 4. So, and you want to chime in, Sherry?
So without saying too much about the third book, Derek's making progress. Let's just say I can start with that. The first 2 books, our galactic intelligence agent has, let's say some stunted social skills, perhaps. He's snarky and difficult, but he also has a great heaviness on his heart. His wife was murdered. And so he's doing his job. He's out there in the galaxy catching bad guys. But the one bad guy he really wants, Valdoon, is the one he's having the most trouble getting his hands on. So by this third book, he's come a long, long way, I think. Wouldn't you say so, Blake?
Yes.
I mean, emotionally developing as a deeper character and making connections that, he was almost like putting himself in a box, didn't want to be anybody's friend, didn't want to deal with anything. He was just such a loner.
Yep,
and then to watch him kind of turn into becoming, that's kind of interesting. And at the same time, it's still adventure. It's every time Derek gets an assignment, he's out there doing something really strange and really crazy, and it never goes quite the way he would love it to go. So, I'm looking forward to that third one coming out. I think people are going to be people who've already read the first 2 are going to be really happy with the way he moves forward and the connections he makes.
Yeah, you guys were pitching the book at the con as Indiana Jones meets Guardians of the Galaxy, which isn't 100% right. But reading your first one, I think it's got the sensibility that's there. And what you're saying is you're going to just carry that energy all the way through to the third one.
Yes.
And the fourth.
Yeah, and the fourth.
Yes.
So super fun read from Blake and Sherry, and their dynamic is interesting. I mean, when I write my stuff, it's me, myself, and I. That's it. And Blake and Sherry have this complementary team going on. And Blake, as far as I understand it, we had you guys on the pod a few months ago. You're the creative guy. You're channeling all the weirdness and ideas and characters. And Sherry's actually the one who's like, getting it into a story, giving it structure. Do I have that right?
It's pretty much, yeah. I mean, we kind of come together in certain points, like idea building and that kind of thing. So just like I can't come up with something off the cuff, or I can't picture this gigantic place. Blake has to picture the gigantic universe that he's created, but I can pull in tighter, into the storylines. I can bore down into the characters' heads, and I enjoy doing that part.
Puts the emotion into it.
There's some writing duos like The Expanse, the novel, and part of the screenplay that landed on Amazon Prime. A great series for sci-fi. Those guys write in tandem, and I think they write every odd chapter. So one guy will write one chapter, and then they alternate, and they've adopted not only a complementary but a synergized kind of style. They're able to do that. But you guys are a little different. So you guys have brainstorming over coffee, and then do you share your ideas with Sherry, who knocks them out?
Yeah, a lot of brainstorming. But to your point, I think that's very interesting about what you're talking about another way of co-writing, which is chapter by chapter. Oh, I could never do it.
No, we don't.
No, that would not be at all. It's just such a different experience. To me, the experience is so interconnected. But I have my piece that is like, I feel like I have a grip on. And so, yeah, that's a very interesting way to write. I think of it as being very, I don't know, that's a special talent to co-write like that, like to totally trust the next chapter to the other person.
That's something, but you guys have a special talent too. And it kind of fuses with your relationship. You guys have a great dynamic, and it's wonderful to see people who collaborate on the page and off. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we're very fortunate, I think.
Yeah, in our books, since there's 4 to 5 different stories, I'll write the first story, then I hand it off, and I jump into the second one while she's reading the first one. So we're in separate offices. So when I'm plugging away, I'll hear, Blake, come here. We go back and forth, and we talk about, I have to stop what I'm doing here and go back to that scene in the first story. And then we hash out something, and then we just keep going on and on like that, and like a production line.
Amazing. I think that's really wonderful. And the fact that the reader, when you're reading about Derek Fade's adventures, you don't notice any kind of disconnect at all. It's very, very organic.
Oh, yeah.
I'm also pals and have had on the podcast Daniel P. Douglas, who are identical twins. And they collaborate also. And they're like a combination of the Expanse writers and you guys. They write independently of each other, and then they collaborate. And sometimes they dive into the same story together and then disband and do separate books. So it's pretty wild. I guess sharing all of your chromosomes might help for something like that. But that's another writer duo that's got their own dynamic, and I find it fascinating. Ingrid, how's it going? Winner of the astonishing, amazing creator award. They love you over there, and it's frankly well deserved.
Well, it's just nice to know somebody likes your stuff, They could have said bad things about it.
They liked you. It's good to get kudos. Well deserved.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's cooking for you? Like Greg, you're also going into the fantasy genre. Tell us about that.
So my space opera series is done, done and done. I don't know that I can go anywhere else with it at this point without it being very different, and I have to deal with my own jarred head with that. I have some prequel related stuff that I could do and some spin-offs, but I decided to take a turn. I'm going to go fantasy wise. I've got a novel, the first in a series, pretty much written. About half of the second novel is written, and then I keep thinking of like, how is this going to end? And I keep writing stuff for the third. So they're kind of all being written at the same time. And in this fantasy, like the two words, I love to just put these two words together: paladin, assassin. So if you know D&D and you know what paladins are, and essentially they're sort of knights that are gifted with like a divine power.
Yeah, they're badasses.
They're badasses.
In Dungeons and Dragons, the paladin is like super high points, right? Like
generally, yeah.
You want to be one of those.
High stats, high charisma, all this stuff. But in this case, the main character is, very faithful paladin. He serves the emperor. He has a dark side in that he is also their assassin. And he does not necessarily like this, but if the way things work in this world is if the emperor says, what comes out of the emperor's mouth comes out of the goddess's mouth, essentially. He is the avatar of the goddess. So if she says, go murder these people, then he says, okay, I got to murder these people because the goddess said so and I'm faithful, right? So it's kind of a theme of like autonomy versus obedience. Does faith come from within or does faith come from without, right? Is it about your external actions or is it about kind of your feelings? I don't know. So I'm not a religious person, so it's been a very fun approach to looking at a magic system that is based purely on godly powers, but also very limited. And then, I don't know, it's just this character is just fun. I think he's very likable. I think he's very lovable. But he has all kinds of dark past as well. And there's 8 characters total. Some of them are bringing down the empire. Some of them are trying to build it back up. Like Greg's main character, the emperor has a generational curse. In this case, it's more like being possessed. And so he's the avatar, but he's also possessed. It's like a little dichotomy there. So his goal is to go find the cure to this curse so he doesn't pass it on to his daughter, the princess. The princess, meanwhile, is trying to run the empire with her aunt, who is essentially the archbishop or almost the pope, like basically, of the order. She's trying to make it her own. And then the other 4 characters are kind of just, they're outside of that sort of political spectrum at the time, but then it all comes together at the end. Let's put it that way. So, but I haven't decided yet. Will it be a happy ending, a sad ending? Will the main character, he's not going to die probably, but is he going to be excommunicated? Is he going to be a hero? I don't even know.
Well, knowing you, they're going to be tortured at some point.
There's not a lot of torture in this one. No, this is not that's, I left that to the sci-fi. There's plenty of torture in that one. This one's a little more heart driven and not so much head driven.
Where the motif is similar, though, is you've got great dynamics between principal characters and power relationships, and it sounds like you're exploring that again. Yeah. So you got the paladin, and then you got the channeling of the themes and the omens, and that echoes some of the dynamic before for the Handler's Gamut, where you've got that similar dynamic between 2 people.
Yeah, I like to explore, like, autonomy is probably my favorite theme because I just feel like there's so much in this world that you don't have control over. So what do you have control over? And what part of your life can you control and make your own versus what other people tell you to do? Which most of our life in society is living up to other people's expectations, living up to other people's sense of what you should and shouldn't be doing. And it's frustrating sometimes because you're like, well, what about me? What if why do I have to go earn money so I can buy food when I just want to sit down and write stories, right? Like, why can't I just entertain the world and then somebody feed me, right? I don't want to have to, but society doesn't work that way. So we have to kind of figure out how to work within this.
A few more awards and maybe a few more Comic-Cons and you'll get there.
Maybe.
That's the hope, right?
Yeah. My aunt is always like, "You're going to be famous," and I'm like, "I would kill to be famous right now, but honestly, like that doesn't sell books." So,
well, just get through it. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger was a 3-time bodybuilding champion, and he was still like doing bricklaying. And that's when he realized he's got to change his stuff up. So just because you've made a name for yourself, right, doesn't necessarily mean that the cashola is headed your way, especially in indie writing, right?
Yes.
I'll take the cash over fame any day.
If you're a Netflix content hunter and you're watching or listening to this, here we are, contact information in the descriptions. So, that's every writer's dream. And my dream was always to write the book I wrote. I think science fiction is a terrific genre because it operates off the counterfactual conditional, which is what if. What if biorhythms are true? Or what if people could live on the surface of a neutron star? Or, what if this swashbuckling hero does XYZ? So my premise was, what if Max Tegmark's level 4 multiverse is true? And in a nutshell, without too much geekery, it basically stipulates that there's an infinite number of universes where every possibility that we see expressed in this one plays itself out. So there's an infinite number of universes where this same conversation is taking place, except I'm wearing a red polo shirt instead of a blue one. Every conceivable variation is actualized in a universe. And this has implications with quantum mechanics and general relativity, and people have been talking about this. It's still speculative. But I've always been fascinated by that idea because it harkens back thematically to possibility. We always wonder we could do something different in our lives, right? Like instead of just making a left turn, I made a right turn. Or I went on a date with this person and 20 years later, we got 3 kids and 20 years of misery. So there's all these options that we're dealing with. Some are really small that lead to inconsequential results and implications, and some relatively minor ones at the time blow up and literally split the universe. So I've been fascinated about this forever, and it finally hit me in a short story format where I could translate that into a compelling character and a narrative. And that's my book. Johnny Fazuli and the Transfinite Reality Engine features a con man and a hustler who rips off investors with bullshit inventions, who hires a real scientist to rip people off even better. And she actually builds the thing, and it works. So that's the ironic twist to it. And I finally published, and there's a series of at least 3, 4, 5 more in the series. And it's been my pride and joy. And I love going to Comic-Cons and, trying to convince people that it isn't as weird as it sounds. And I've even entered a contest with Ingrid's, nudging. And I just love getting it out there. I'm tweeting it paragraph by paragraph on my X profile in reverse. So if you go to at Johnny Fazuli, you could see the whole book unfurling day to day.
Word.
And you could read it going in, regular direction. And I'm having a blast. So have I made a shit ton of money? No. But it brings smiles and it gives me a sense of renewed purpose and excitement. And I finally love what I do. Like, I think everyone here can relate, and listeners and viewers can relate too, that as a creator, you don't always like your stuff, and you can go for years and just hate it, right? It's like, this sucks. I mean, what the fuck? I'm working so hard. And finally, I think I cracked it. In Malcolm Gladwell terms, I did the tipping point where I finally built up enough critical mass and experience and confidence, and maybe the period in my life where I just love it to the point where you don't have to. And reviewers don't have to. I really like it. So it's intrinsically joyful, which at the end of the day is good for us because we're not buying and selling crypto or real estate. And the odds are not in our favor for that Netflix miniseries, but it's still possible, right?
Right. And what I like about going to the cons is basically that you meet people, you meet fans, you get the word out there, they get to meet you. I have my one fan, Michael, who comes back and asks questions. He's like, I'm at this point in this book, and let's talk about it. And I just love that. It's like, everybody should come back to all the cons that they buy.
Yeah, Greg had a fan too, right? Your fan
It was the same one, Michael.
Oh,
he's come to 3 of my shows, and he's bought one book at each show. So I'm hoping over the course of the next couple shows, he gets the rest of them.
Yeah,
and he's a really nice guy. Yeah. I was expecting 1 or 2 more people to come by because they'd seen me at Pasadena before, but I didn't see them anywhere this time. So that was a bummer.
They couldn't find us.
Maybe, yeah.
Blake and Sherry, you got to build your own fan club, right? Sherry had a fan that was a little bit awkward there for a few moments. No one was flirting with me. At least I couldn't tell. Blake was not pleased.
Lucky.
I don't even know what to say. That was so interesting. Yeah, that was not what my expectation was. But just quickly jumping back to what you said about what we learned from the shows and how we felt about this particular one. I think every one of them, among the other things that we get out of it, is we learn our audience, who they are. They tell us who they are by the questions they ask us.
Yes.
You know, well, does it do this? Does it do that? Well, they ask us things. I had one gentleman who literally stumped me. He asked me a question and I didn't know how to take it at all. So, and when I think back on it, maybe just because I wasn't expecting it, but he asked me something about the pacing of the book. And I asked him I ended up looking at him thinking, okay, what does this, I mean, if he's not a writer, then he might mean something different by pacing than if he is a writer. And so I kind of had to break it down. So tell me what you mean by that. You know, tell me, are you talking about, I don't know, the ratio of dialogue to exposition, or are you talking about, and it was just kind of an interesting conversation. And I learned from them what they want to hear and what they want to read, you know? So I find that interesting. And one thing that Blake and I definitely, I mean, we're newbies. We're clearly newbies. And one thing that we both heard loud and clear is that it's worth some money to invest in audiobooks. So, I mean, that's one of our next goals, is because I heard that from the fans, you know?
Yep.
Audiobooks where it's at. Ingrid's got a great voiceover talent in her buddy Scott, who's done the Biohunter, right?
He's on all of them.
He's on all of them. Okay, great. Yeah, we were talking about the fresh release of the Biohunter audiobook. And definitely, if you look at the stats for engagement, millions of people are listening to audiobooks. Now, have you heard the phrase, I read the audiobook? They're using read as a verb for audiobooks. It's
even
that's what I do. That's how I say it.
Yeah. I think that's kind of cool. It's taking over the modality, right? Like supplanting text into the audio. And I tried to round up friends and family to help me with my audiobook, kind of a DIY audiobook. And just FYI with this DIY stuff, unless you're paying the cashola up front, nobody will help you. So I'm probably going to end up doing most of it myself. I've already recorded about half of it in podcast form as a dry run. And I'm just going to unload it, I think, in the next month or so and do it myself. I did get a Cornish poet to read a couple sections, and I rewrote the book into first person to make the character narrate, and that was pretty fun. So do that. What about you, Greg? there's no audiobooks for the Mech Haven series, is there?
I have the first one, Pax Machina, done. My narrator is a friend of mine, a friend of a friend, and we're friends now too. We did a royalty share on Amazon, so the cost for that was nothing really for me, other than the rights are we split the royalties for the next 7 years. So if it does good, he does good, I do good. If it doesn't do good, neither of us make anything. And which is it's kind of a tough sell for the audiobook narrators for that, because they put a lot of time in to record it. It's 4 or 5 hours of work for every hour produced, depending on what you're doing. For Mechhaven, he went back and did a lot of processing of the voices to make them sound robotic. And so, I mean, it sounds like almost, if you think about like old school Transformers cartoons or Transformers movies, the voices are processed like that. So that was a ton of extra work that he didn't have to do, and he did. And it's wonderful. I do need to have discussions with him to see if he wants to do the next one in the series. But it was a ton. And so doing the royalty split is one way to do it if you can find an author willing to do it, or a narrator willing to do it. And a lot of times, if you can find somebody who's just starting out, you can find somebody willing to take that chance so they can, get, credits under their name. But then you do have to split the royalties for, 7 years. So if you become a best-selling author, you're dividing that in half. And so it's already a pretty small slice of the pie by the time, if you're on Audible, by the time you get I think by the time Audible takes all their share and the share that's used for uploading and downloading, I think you make maybe $4 or $5 per book, and then split that between the author and the narrator. So your the actual money you make on each one is very, very minimal.
Yeah.
So that's the other way, is you pay up front, and that can vary, and you pay by per finished hour. So the various narrators will have rates based on their experience, skill, popularity, all that fun stuff. And then they will, depending on how long your audiobook is, then you would have to pay them a flat fee to produce it. Now, it doesn't matter how many hours it takes them to produce it. It's per finished hour, but that can get quite pricey.
Ingrid, what about you? You've done all your books.
Yeah. Well, Fury isn't done yet, but he's working on it. It was supposed to be last spring, but we're working on it. But we did Biohunter a little bit late, and that was last spring. But he narrated that. But I did. So let me go back. So I did the first. The Handler's Gambit was on Audible. That was the first time I worked with Scott. He kind of had to walk me through the whole thing too, because he'd been doing it for a while. And we did rev share. But if you do rev share on Audible, your only option is to do exclusive. You can't do rev share if you go wide. So on Audible. So we ended up doing that. So I'm stuck for 7 years, or now 5 more years. Can't distribute it anywhere else. Audible tells you what your price is going to be. Audible tells you you don't get anything. So we did the second one that way, and we'll do the third one that way, because it seems silly to go wide and somebody picks up the third book and they're like, wait, but I didn't read the first 2. So, but for Biohunter, I said, no, I want to go wide with this. It'll still be on Audible, but I'm going to go wide. We're going to pay everybody up front. I had a multi-voice cast because I have people of color, and I love Scott, but I didn't want him to try to sound like he was reading for people of color. So, if he was doing the whole thing, that'd be one thing, but it just didn't seem right. So I hired other people to do some voices. And so it's got a little multicast in there. So I paid everybody up front or after or whatever. And, but it was fun. It was fun. I had to edit it all together, and it was crazy. Actually, Scott did a lot of the editing, or he hired someone to do some of the editing to piece the voices together. And I did a lot of the leveling at the end to make sure all the voices came in around the same. So that was a lot of work. That was way more work than I ever would have thought. But if you just hire someone to do it and you pay them the per finished hour and you don't do rev share, it's much easier, because they do all the work.
The final product sounds great. and it adds dimensionality to the original content.
Yeah.
And it lends itself for further repurposing, right? I
Hopefully.
mean,
Yeah.
Ideally that Netflix content hunter, but an intermediary step could be graphic novels as well. Have you guys thought or considered graphic novel as a modality to get the content out there in a different way?
I've thought about it.
I would really, really love that.
Yeah.
I think
It
it's
would be
kind of the same deal as you do have to find artists who are capable and willing to do it, and then you do have to put the cost up. I was talking to a couple of the graphic artists just around the show with they had graphic novels and stuff that they had made, and for some of them it took them 2 years to put the thing together that they were selling. So it does take a while because a lot of them have full-time jobs also. And so the time it takes to put together a good sized graphic novel is time consuming. So I think it's a great idea, though. I would love to see my Mechhaven series as a graphic novel, and some of the future series I have planned, I think would be really, really good as graphic novels or comics or something.
Absolutely. When we were at LA Comic-Con and I was trolling around, I went to the artist alley that was in the basement and I just blue skied it. I was like, which artist here would capture the style that would be bang on point for my new novel? And I zoomed right into this artist named Don Aguilio. And I never knew his stuff really. He did the Rise comics. And as I found out later, he's doing Aquaman and Superman for DC. So he's entrenched. He's up there. He's a full-time graphic artist, comic illustrator, and he's a great guy. So I got to meet him, talk to him, and we've been back and forth about the idea. He's got a stack of things on his plate, and he's probably expensive given his pedigree. But I got him on the podcast. So he was my guest just a few weeks ago, and we had a wonderful conversation about the flip side of this conversation, which is he gets content from artists, writers, and then he needs to repurpose how he storyboards, how he thinks about story flow. And it was fascinating and very, very interesting. I love content repurposing. And since the multiverse is my theme, everything possible is also real. Just the idea of the story itself in a meta kind of way, having these different expressions is really cool. So that excites me. And Blake and Sherry, I think Derek Fade would fade in pretty well to a comic book format too. The story goes pretty fast. It's very kinetic. They're zipping all over the galaxy, right?
Yeah, that would be pretty
You got
cool.
you got a lot of weird aliens in there.
Take a lot of time to, like Greg said, time consuming, drawing everybody, the world building, and even the background. You have to design the spaceships and all that, and each creature and their clothing, and right down to their boots.
I asked Don what it was like taking on Superman and Aquaman, these iconic comic book characters, right?
Yeah.
And different artists have had their own adaptations. And he said he just got off the phone with, Todd McFarlane, who's actually a cool guy. And apparently there was a boot that he didn't get quite right in one of the, one of the sketches. So he had a bad morning. He was like, he had to redraw the boot on Aquaman or something similar. And that's a completely different perspective from what we're used to, right?
Yeah.
At the very worst, we might get a beta reader who's like, "Can you change that chapter ending?" But it's not too bad.
Then when you start building fans, they pick up on that stuff, and if you have something backwards or a different color or whatever, you're going to get called out on it.
In the interim, and I talked about this with Don too, is AI. So AI is so ubiquitous to the point it's a cliche, but I'm bringing it up now because in lieu of not having a graphic artist, in lieu of not having, let's say, that audiobook talent at your disposal, either for financial reasons, logistical reasons, or whatever, you can go to 11 Labs and just have the voices, right? I mean, it can be done and it's getting better and better. And each of us can even just zoom to any of the frontier LLMs and it could start creating images. So how do you guys feel about AI for the content repurposing on one hand, and the inevitable question of AI coming into your creative process? I've spoken about this individually with all of you, but I think now that we're all together, I think the AI topic is not only topical, but transformative at this point. I'll start with Greg.
I'm the guinea pig that gets to go first. Huh? The whole AI thing is very interesting, and I see the environment from a lot of different perspectives. I'm on a couple of Facebook groups that talk about AI. I'm in some Facebook groups that are very anti-AI, and so it's kind of interesting seeing both sides, what people are doing or not doing, what sets some people off. It seems like for most people using AI for editing, because most editing programs use AI to some degree, whether you like it or not, it's there. And that doesn't seem to set people off as much, and different people have different thresholds of where they draw the line for AI. Some authors will use it for brainstorming, some will use it as just a more advanced Google. I mean, that's kind of one of the things I do is instead of going to Google and searching 20 websites, I can go into AI and say, how would a Roman legion do XYZ? And then instead of doing a whole bunch of reading, I get a one-sheet summary of what it would do. And then I can take that and then decide how I want to incorporate things like that into whatever I'm working on. But then you get the whole art thing, and that one's a little touchier of a subject because, of the way they were trained. It used art, and a lot of times, or most of the time, people didn't give permission to do it. Same with a lot of the books and the writing. But on the other hand, it's something that's out there and it is going to be used. People are using it. People are using it to make money. And some people are making a decent living, and they're using AI quite a bit. The audio one is interesting too, because I know 11 Labs, the voices they get, they do pay royalties to the people who record the voices. I was at author show in November, Author Nation, and 11 Labs had a booth there, and there was a gentleman who was kind of a spokesperson / fan, and his daughter were there, and they were both two of the most popular voices on 11 Labs, and they were making enough money to help. His daughter didn't have to go get a job; she could focus on school. I forget the exact story, but they were making enough money from it to where he was able to concentrate on writing and voice work rather than getting another job. So that was interesting. Now, obviously, that's not the story everybody will have, but so it's interesting. It brings up a lot of good questions. I still haven't quite figured out where I am 100% on all these issues. I'm exploring and testing out various AIs. What can it do? What can it do? What should it do? What shouldn't it do? But yeah, but I think the bigger question, or not, maybe not the bigger question, the question is, and from what I've seen, it varies, but what do the readers like and expect, or do they even care? And so I think that's ultimately going to be the deciding factor, because the technology is going to change. It always does. For ages, Photoshop was, real photographers hated Photoshop, but then it's hard to find photographers who don't use Photoshop at this point. So yeah. So I don't know. That's kind of my 3 cents worth.
As far as readers go, if Facebook is any indication, I get AI slop all the time. You guys get it too with those meme channels that blast, the story of Oppenheimer, and then all of this LLM slop. You can tell it's a bot. Sometimes the paragraphs repeat. There's asterisks left in for the formatting. And then there's like 100 comments below. meaningfully discussing the content. I'm like, get the F out of here. And like most people just absorb it, don't care, they're doom scrolling. And I think the general public is almost at the point where they don't give a shit. And then the flip side is also true, where we're bombarded by AI slop to the point we don't even know what's real anymore. And the memes are annoying. You know that meme now with the Chihuahua at the Starbucks drive-in or the McDonald's who's screaming at the customers? I see that like 5 times a day. I'm ready to jump out the window, and it's like, it's just the beginning of this onslaught of AI slop thanks to Sora and video too. So I think we're trying to figure it out. But to your point, it's becoming ubiquitous. It's inevitable. It's a tool. So let's see how it shakes out, right? Ingrid.
I'm afraid I have to get going, so you all carry on, but I gotta get moving here.
Thanks for joining, Ingrid Moon. She's copping out of the AI discussion.
Down with slop.
we won't assume anything.
I could do quick. I'm with Greg. It can be a useful tool for certain things. It shouldn't write for you. It shouldn't do your art. I do use it when I want to make like Instagram posts. I'll use it for that, right? It's my text and my everything, but I'll use it for imagery because, like,
no shame, shame.
But now I draw my own stuff. I'm starting to relearn to draw stuff. I'm terrible at it, but but it's fun. I'm enjoying drawing my own stuff. So.
Great. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, bye. Ingrid Moon, we're going to have a link to her goodies in the description below. Thanks, Ingrid.
Hey, thanks, bye.
See you at LA Book Fair. All right. Blake and Sherry, how about you guys? AI.
Well, I'll never use AI for writing. Everything is in here. But the artwork, because I draw myself, and I designed a lot of my characters, and I played with Midjourney and all these different ones. I use up my 500 points or whatever. You can do it for free. And it's getting close to, you type in your description and it gets pretty close to it. But I still rather design myself, but I use them as references now. If I have to get something really quick and see what it would look like, the colors and everything. But I won't like promote it and say, oh, I drew this. I wouldn't do that because you get called out on that now too. People know.
Yeah, you get called out on using it at all. I had another writer on the podcast, Bruno Rothgieser, and he wrote a book about AI. And it was basically after the AI revolution. So the AI are banished after they almost kill everybody. They're like, get off the planet, go out there, never come back. And then this is in the far future. The AI have like evolved and they come back to the Earth to reclaim the Earth and like cohabitate with us. That's the theme. It's kind of cool theme. But he's got mostly AI characters, and he did AI art for his book, which is obviously AI except for the cover. He's got a human drawn cover. And then he went to 11 Labs and did the audiobook. So I think that this is like, it's kind of cool, but at the same time, it's like becoming so mechanical that people, I think, when they see the book are kind of like, well, did the AI write the book? And he's adamant, no, he wrote it himself. And it shows it's a human, you can tell human text. But that's another risk that you take. If you surround yourself with AI, then people are going to question the integrity of your own creativity. That's automatic, right?
If you don't mind, I'd like to point out the funny irony right now that all of us sci-fi writers are debating AI. I mean, just the science fiction is where the concept of AI is born. Everything's usually fiction in science fiction, and then someday it becomes real. So there's just there's a sweet and painful irony in it. For me, there's a part of me who bitterly hates the concept. I'm old school, especially since where I started with literature was reading things that were written by people who were dead 100 years before I was born. So, but I also have a little faith I'm a teenager of the 80s, so I remember when new wave music came out, and we're never going to have real music again. No one's ever going to go acoustic. It's just going to destroy the music industry. And it didn't. It just broadened it. And so I guess I have a little bit of faith that every technology, everything that changes also shines a light on the beauty of an older format. I mean, you can't say that about the horse-drawn carriage, but in a lot of cases you can, and particularly in artistic cases, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I'm Pollyanna about it. Brian Eno put out a movie a few years ago, and there were something like 54 quintillion different versions of this movie. Because what they did was they shot it in a modular format, and then they randomized the segments. And then every time you saw this movie, you saw one of the 54 quadrillion or quintillion permutations. So that's not AI per se, but Brian Eno, of all people, has been one integrating technology in a uniquely eccentric and quirky, very human channel, right? Which is his creativity.
Yeah.
And it brings out the best if you can modulate it and use it as a tool instead of a substitute for your own spirit. So I agree with you completely. I think we live in interesting times, and it's going to get even more interesting. And there's going to be blips and farts and landmines, and bad things are going to happen. But I think it's going to be net positive.
I think eventually it'll be what does the final product look like, right? What is the final product? Does the final product still resonate with you? I think that's ultimately where it's going to end up. And so in 3 to 5 years, we'll be discussing some other new technology, probably holograms or something.
Yeah, you never know.
Oh, Sherry made a good comment about being sci-fi writers and worrying about AI and stuff, where we have characters like C-3PO and Data, and who knows who else, all these other characters who people really liked and enjoyed, right? And so I know that's kind of the feeling I get sometimes when I'm using like Claude or Grok or whatever, just messing around, and you start getting in a little chat with it, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like bouncing ideas back and forth with me. And I don't think of it as I'm talking to another person or another intelligence. It's like a mirror reflecting things back at me. It's kind of really interesting.
That's a very interesting observation about the mirroring, because part of their programming is to appease you, right? And to stroke you off a little bit.
You have to be careful with that.
They're sycophantic
because everything you say is brilliant.
Yes, yeah, that's an awesome idea. I had a podcast with Chatty Bro as a guest, which is my OpenAI chatbot. And, I had it to the voice setting, and we just hauled ass through an hour-long conversation. And I brought up the point that Sherry made, that you reiterated, Greg, that as science fiction writers, it's fascinating. You have the HAL 9000 in the Kubrick movie, when it was like, oh my God, it's so advanced. And I was telling Chatty Bro in real time that he was doing as good a job as HAL 9000 was in the Kubrick movie, right? 57 years later, there he is. So it is kind of ironic, and at the same time a little bit paradoxical, that many writers consider it such a threat when this is the genre that in a sense birthed it and inspired it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we have the AI troopers that they come and go from different episodes, and they're robots everywhere. They have cam bots. We have a news reporter that put cameramen out of work, and now they have the drones following them. And lots of that.
That's cool, and it's a lot of fun, right? To plug them in.
Yeah. till they become
You don't
self-aware.
have an AI character like what Greg's got all of his characters essentially with some humans who zip in and out, who are like, sentient digital creatures.
Yeah, sentient robots. It would be, if I would have started it, a few years later, it would be completely different because I'd have AI to kind of discuss more about how AI beings would act and react. But instead, I went with more of they were programmed to be as close to human as possible. So that's why they do have emotions and reactions and thoughts and dreams and fears and everything else.
Yeah, in my first book in the series, I haven't introduced a sentient bot, but later on, he's on his way in. So, but it's fun to do, and it's inevitable, right?
Yeah.
To me, it goes all the way back to William Gibson's Neuromancer, which in my humble opinion is one of the best sci-fi novels ever. It's like from 1982, and the guy anticipated the internet, virtual reality, genetic engineering, everything except smartphones. So there's still payphones in the book, which is a funny anachronism. And not to give too much away, but the bad guy in the book, or the all-powerful entity, is Wintermute, who is the controlling AI. And there's a character who's basically a SIM card that has sentience. It's in a little box in the ship. So very entertaining kind of stuff. And Black Mirror has played off of it for many episodes. Like, kind of from a moral point of view, that if we can create sentience in the form of even virtual programs, do they have souls? And what if we torture them endlessly and make them our pleasure slaves? What's the ethics of AI? It's interesting because it's in the reverse direction. We usually think about AI coming to kill us, abuse us. And in Black Mirror, it's usually the other way around, where we're enslaving the AI in these virtual universes, and they're our playthings. So I like that kind of switcheroo, literally in the mirror. So that kind of stuff is neat. Well, all right, folks. Thanks for making time post Pasadena. I appreciate it. It was fun to share our experiences and what we're working on. Blake and Sherry and Greg Sorber. And who's going to the LA Book Festival? You're going, Greg, right? And
I'll be there. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. All right.
Because Ingrid says we have to. What?
Yeah.
I just want to thank Ingrid for she is like the den mom of the indie science fiction scene, right?
Yeah.
She's our common element, and she's so good at planning.
He's a great organizer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Planning is not in my strength finder top list of 5 qualities. So it's good that she's got it going on. And we still need to decide on a name, right? For the group.
Yeah, we're still playing around with
I
that.
voted Singularity Scribes, which I thought was cool. Galactic Caravan, I'm not a big fan.
No? Okay.
I'm really looking forward to that event, though, because there's going to be a handful of writers, a handful of science fiction people, but there's publishers, agents, magazines, different news sources, vendors. So I'm going to run around, try to get podcast guests, give people book samples. It should be good, and it looks really big and fun.
Something I've always wanted to go to as a reader, and so I'm excited to go there as a writer. I'm hoping it's fun.
We'll make it fun.
Here we go full circle. Even if you don't sell a lot of books, you get to network and market, right?
Yeah.
Really cool. So thanks, folks. Appreciate your time. Carry on.
Thanks, Mookie. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Blake.
Okay.
Good to
Thank
see y'all.
you.
Take care, folks.
All right. Take care.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.